Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the review space. Today in this video I'm going to take a look at this article from GameSpot called Which Console Should You Buy in 2015? So which current gen gaming system should you get in 2015? I'm going to take a look at their choices and their reasoning, and I'm going to take a look at, my personal opinion, my take on these particular consoles. They started off with the Xbox One. And they talk about the Xbox One. This is basically what they said. Now's the time to pick one up. It didn't get off to the best start when it launched back in 2013, but if you're looking at the past, you're missing what's ahead. And there's a lot to look forward to with the Xbox One. I would actually tend to agree with the Xbox One. That would be arguably my number one choice. The X-Bone, as I used to call it back in 2013. The Xbox One is basically, I think, the most interesting console right now in terms of the home systems, and overall it might be the number one. It might be the most buyable, I guess, the most purchasable in terms of the games. You take a look at the titles that it's currently, in its library. You take a look at games like Titanfall. You take a look at games like even something like Killer Instinct, okay, which was greatly neutered when it first came out, but they added a few more characters. They released that retail version, okay, and then you could even download a KI2 pack in there. And you had other titles, as games like Sunset Overdrive. So the Xbox One, I think, is a lot better than it was in 2013, hands down, and maybe even in early 2014. Of course, it has games like GTA 5. It has all the multi-plats that you can think of, the CODs, all of those, Assassin's Creed, all of the games that we've seen pretty much released on the PS4, aside from the PlayStation exclusives. The Xbox One can rock it, and the Xbox One handles it, maybe not as well as the PlayStation system in terms of resolution, not as good, not as, the frame rate isn't as strong, the resolution isn't as strong, but there are some games that it seems like the Xbox One can handle a little bit better. Assassin's Creed, for some reason, I would probably choose the Xbox One. Overall, it just seems to be the most interesting game system right now, and that's fascinating because a year and a half ago, everybody fucking hated Microsoft. Everybody was dick-riding Sony, was completely anti-Xbox One, were very hateful towards it because they jumped the fucking bandwagon. They bought into the anti-Microsoft propaganda. They're not entirely innocent, obviously. I mean, they fucked up in early 2013. They messed up. They had the restrictions, which was horrible. But now I think that the Xbox One has greatly improved. Overall, man, you really can't go wrong with the X-Bone, in my opinion. The Xbox One. But let's take a look at the PlayStation 4. So this is the PS4. This is what they said. The PS4 has had undeniable market success, so it seems pointless to regale you with tales of sales numbers and game attach rates. Needless to say, if you buy one, you'll have no trouble finding a community for the online games, and you'll have all the multimedia applications you should expect from YouTube, Netflix, Spotify, and more. Well, I don't give a flying fuck about the multimedia apps. I'm pretty sure most gamers don't. YouTube, Netflix, I don't give a shit. I think I met one person that bought a PlayStation 3 back in the day for Netflix, for watching movies on it, So with the PS4, it has to be a gaming system. This has to be a system that has exclusives, has all these amazing titles, and to me, it just doesn't have it. It has a bunch of fucking rehashed shit from the last gen, from last generation, the PS3 era, mixed in with all the multi-plats that we've seen in the past year and a half. So it's not really impressive, in the exclusives it has, The Order, all these upcoming titles, and the promises of the PlayStation 4, it does look, I'm sure it will become better, it will have better games in the future, it looks promising, but at the same time, I'm not gonna fucking put the PS4 on the pedestal like all these stupid Sony, I should say the PS4 D-Riders, these goddamn former Xbox 360 assholes that jump ship, because it's usually 360 fucking losers that basically jump ship from the 360. Oh, the 360 better than the PS3. And then they fucking jumped ship and started kissing PS4's ass and burying Xbox One because they're a bunch of bandwagoners. They're not real fans. They're not true Sony fans. They're a bunch of sycophantic, bandwagoning, I should say, they're idiots. They're just losers who want to jump ship and follow the trends, not necessarily be an actual real Sony supporter where you'll check out the system anyway. You'll buy Sony stuff just because you like Sony, because it's reliable. Sony systems have usually always been the most reliable systems. The controller is good. I don't fucking know why everybody hates the PlayStation controllers. Oh, they break easily. What kind of a fucking idiot breaks a Sony controller that easily? I mean, I can understand over time, the wears and tears, and I mean, I've had PS2 controllers break on me because the cord fucked up, and eventually it just stopped working. It just wouldn't work anymore. But I mean, you can fucking replace them, and guess what? It's better than getting the fucking Red Ring of Death. So, but we're talking about the PS4 here. The PS4, it's nothing special to me right now. There's nothing going on with this console that I want to get in terms of fighting games, in terms of shooters, platforming, racing games, action games. There's fucking nothing. It's not enticing me right now. Maybe in the future, but the PS4 can take a back seat. Alright, the Wii U. Let's look at the Wii U. The Wii U had an undeniably rocky start. Sales were slow at the start, and there was confusion over what it was exactly, a standalone controller for the Wii. But despite facing increasing competition from Microsoft and Sony, Nintendo has turned the perception of its console around significantly. I gotta agree. I think the Wii U is slightly underrated right now, even with the games that it has. I mean, you're talking about the Mario Karts and the Smash Brothers and shit like that. Bayonetta 2. Those are the top games that pop into my head at the moment. And not to mention, I mean, even the last gen games of the PS3 360 era, the Tekken Tag 2s and shit like that, and Sonic All Stars Transformed, and the games that came out back in 2012. I think the Wii U is a decent system. It really is. It's over-criticized, I think. There was a time when the Wii U deserved to be bashed, and Nintendo, in a lot of ways, is still... They're still reeling and suffering, rightfully, for the fuck-up that they had with the goddamn Wii. The Wii was a piece of shit. It was a fucking useless casual system. It had maybe a few decent games here and there, but... And then that stigma carried to the Wii U when the Wii U came out. But I'm glad that, at least Nintendo was somewhat trying. I mean, it's very predictable with Nintendo. They'll put out Smash Bros, Mario Kart, Mario, Zelda. It's the predictable pattern of the same franchises. They gotta have those new fucking apps in there, or something more adult games, mature games, something with more grittiness and more violence and more sexual appeal to cater to the older demographic, because everything about the Wii U it still has the stink of the fucking Nintendo kiddified casual feel. In terms of the future of the Wii U, I think the Wii U did okay in 2014. In 2015, I'm not entirely sure how well they're gonna do in terms of their upcoming games. I mean, another Zelda down the line. Oh, another Mario down the line. Whatever other, maybe another Metroid. I mean, these are predictable franchises, so we gotta have those brand new, appealing fucking games. Something appealing and new and fresh, and not casual bullshit. It has to be hardcore. And I don't know what the answer is with the Wii U. I don't know how they can turn around this fucking system to the point that we can actually really be going head-to-head with the PS4. Where it can, consistently be beating the Xbox One. I mean, the Wii U does well. Nintendo does well in Japan, in the Japanese market, but that's Japan. That's home turf. That's the home advantage. What about the rest of the world? What about, the Western world? I mean, Nintendo will always have their diehards, but when everything is just so fucking kiddified and casual for the most part. They don't have games that are kind of like God of War, or Resistance, or Gears of War, or Halo, or anything like that. For the most part, they're just mascots. Mascots, mascots, mascots. So, the Wii U has a lot of work to do, in my opinion. Moving on to the 3DS. Here it is, 3DS. The 3DS has transcended its humble beginnings, coming a long way since its quiet launch in early 2011. I can't fucking believe it's been almost 4 years. The 3DS library has become impressively varied, offering a hearty bang for your buck in terms of content. I will say this, I think the 3DS has a decent library of fighting games, much better than the fucking shithole that is the DS. The 3DS has a few fighting games. I would be partial to the 3DS, and I would be like, okay, the 3DS, it is worth checking out. Playing the 3DS, though, aside from being a next-gen or a current-gen version of a DS, and it's a little bit stronger, and it's got... the controls are a little bit different this time, and... I mean, my god. There's not much I can fucking find on the 3DS, aside from a few titles, that appeals to me. It is more of the same. Again, the kiddified shit, the casual shit. If you want to get 20,000 versions of Pokemon, then get a fucking 3DS. And, the new Nintendo 3DS, the new one where it's like, it can play certain games, the fucking older 3DS models can't play. I mean, how sad is that? I mean, that's totally, in my opinion, unacceptable. That's bullshit. That's fucking horseshit. That's some... It's almost like bait and switch. It's almost like a fucking very misleading thing where... What's the point of buying the initial 3DS when they'll put out a new version of it that has way better upgrades and shit, and can play newer games that the older version can't? What's the point of getting the fucking 3DS to begin with? It's like, why not just wait for that ultimate fucking next version? And it feels like with the 3DS, they'll just keep rehashing it. The way they did it with the fucking DS, and they'll just put out a new model, kind of like the way that Apple does with their fucking iPhone, and every year there's a brand new model of the 3DS, and there's a new iteration, and the 2DS, and the new Nintendo 3DS, and... Jesus Christ, and that's what pisses me off about the 3DS. It's just, it's a Pokemon fucking Pokemon system. That's what it is. That's why people buy it. It's like, they gotta get the X and Y, and they gotta get the fucking Alpha Sapphires, and all that shit, and the Omega Rubies. Even though we've seen those games before, even though we've experienced it, even though we're familiar with these franchises. If that's all that the 3DS has, for the most part, that's the biggest draw, is Pokemon. Jesus Christ. When is it gonna fucking end with this Pokemon shit? I mean, my god, Pokemon hasn't been fucking cool since the goddamn late 90s. I was 12 years old when I stopped playing Pokemon. You know what I'm saying? When I really, like, stopped liking it. I would play it over the next, 10, 15 years, but it was more like a reluctant, nostalgic thing. It was more like, oh yeah, I used to play Pokemon as a kid. Let me go back to, and let me play like Black. Let me go get Black for like $20 off Craigslist and play it. Let me just buy a used copy of fucking Platinum, off Craigslist and play it. Because I get kind of nostalgic with Pokemon. Like I used to like Squirtle and the first generation, and I used to love the the Charizards, and the first blue and red generation was fun. That was Pokemon in its fucking prime. You can't be playing Pokemon for the rest of your fucking, It's like these nerds, these Pokemon, these Poke nerds that stick to Pokemon for some reason, even though they're like 25 years old, and still play it. I don't know why. It's past its prime. It's not cool anymore. And it used to be cool, it used to be good, and then you see the formulaic fucking, the formulaic approach of Pokemon. The repetitive, same fucking game over and over again. You're a little 10-year-old kid, starting in a fucking small town. You gotta beat the 8 gym leaders, you gotta fucking defeat the Elite Four. You gotta collect as much as you can. Trading, all that bullshit. It's the same thing, and the character designs fucking suck. I could just go on and on and on. Let's keep going. Okay, here we go. Finally, the PS Vita. The goddamn Vita. With an existing library of original games and well-handled ports, making use of the handheld's punchy hardware, there's already plenty of reasons why the PS Vita is a great choice for gaming on the go. I feel bad for the Vita. I feel bad for Sony. I think the Vita is a very underrated handheld. It is rockin'. Way better than the fucking 3DS. The Vita is like a hardcore gamer's handheld. Maybe not as good as the PSP. It doesn't have the variety of the PSP. It doesn't have the library of the PSP. But I mean, technically it does, because you can find a lot of the old PSP games on there. You can download them again. You can rebuy them again. But with the Vita itself, the actual Vita titles, it's pretty solid. You got some, you know, solid fighting games in there, solid action games, and fucking... It's got the action-adventure games, and mature games, and actual games for adults, and, you know, people that want to see more non-kiddified shit. Something that's the opposite of the 3DS. Something that actually has balls. Something that can fucking melt your face off and shit like that. You know, as Silent Rob used to say. But I like the Vita. The Vita's very underrated. It is sort of like... It's sort of like the Wii U, you know, it's like the handheld Wii U kind of thing, although the Wii U is, you know, again, kind of a casual system, or at least, I should say, a Nintendo-style system. The Vita has that same underrated fucking reputation that people just don't want to check it out. People never fucking gave it a chance. It's, you got these anti-Sony, anti-Vita assholes, especially at the beginning, where they're like, oh, the Vita has no games. The Vita has no games. They said the fucking same thing with the PSP. The PSP has no games. The PSP has no games. It's like, have you even fucking played it? Have you seen the library? Have you played the games? Have you fucking enjoyed these games? I mean, Jesus Christ. I'd rather fucking play, you know, Street Fighter Cross Tekken or fucking Mortal Kombat or something like that on the Vita than playing all the casual shit on the 3DS. I mean... To me, the Vita has a lot of cool games on it. A lot of cool shit on there. You know, Uncharted and shit like that. Got a Resistance in there. I mean... The Vita's solid. It just doesn't get a chance. It's not a perfect handheld. You know, the Vita's got its problems. It's... I still feel like the controls on the Vita, it still has that awkward... It's just... You'll never be able to duplicate the console controllers where it's separated from the screen, meaning that you can actually fucking use the controller and just freely, ergonomically, you know, wield it like a weapon, wield it like a sword, like just the way that you handled it without having to stare at the screen the whole time. Where it's always an awkward feeling when you're having a frenetic action, you're playing a frenetic fighting game or an action game or a racing game. But you're always focusing on this, you know, this fucking screen, and it's like shaking in your fucking hand as you fucking play it. I don't know. Overall, Xbox One on the fucking consoles, followed up by the Wii U. The Wii U would be in second place, and then third place would be the PS4. And then on the handhelds, I give the first place to fucking PS Vita, second place with the 3DS. So that's, I think, what you should try to get. Maybe get a PC. Honestly, I think the PC has it's solid. There's a reason why everybody likes the PC. Well, there's a reason why the PC gamers always praise the fucking PC, because the PC usually has the best graphics, like 99.9% of the time. It runs the smoothest, the frame rate. Got a huge library of games. It's just, you know, it's a shame that not everybody plays the PC, I think. You know, I think more people should play the PC, but it's just not everybody has access to, you know, fucking $1,000 worth of PC hardware, where they can actually, you know, soup it up and fucking build, you know, a solid PC gaming rig. Not everybody is willing to do that. Not everybody's willing to game out on the fucking PC. But the PC is, you know, that might be the unofficial number one, you know what I mean, the PC, because there's just so much variety in the fucking PC. I'd still gotta go, you know, Xbox One in terms of systems. Thanks for watching The Review Space, the most underrated channel on YouTube. For more videos, check out youtube.com/The Review Space.